Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we are going to learn about a few advanced indexing techniques in NumPy arrays. So in the previous lecture we have learned pretty basic techniques, but in this lecture we are going to learn about integer indexing and Boolean indexing. So the very first concept which we are going to learn is going to be integer indexing, and integer indexing basically helps us in selecting an arbitrary item in an array based on its multidimensional index. So as you could notice over here in the previous example, as you could see, two-dimensional or multi-dimensional arrays actually have multi-dimensional index. So in case of a single dimensional array, you only have a single index, but as you could see in this two-dimensional array, it's actually going to have two dimensions. So we also need a technique to know how to basically index these kinds of values. So we are actually going to learn how to perform this kind of indexing on an array. So let's go ahead and create an array. So I guess we have created this array initially as well. So if you actually print out A, it should be quite good. So if you run this code, as you could see, we currently have this array, so we don't actually need to just create it again. So what you could simply do is that if you don't have this particular array, you could simply create it by using this line of code right over here, and you should have this array over here. So now let's go ahead and learn how we could perform indexing on this particular array, which is going to be an integer indexing. So what we will do first is that we will create a new array B, and we will type B equals A, which is the current array. And in here, what we will do is that we will pass a multi-dimensional index to this particular array. So we will pass some values like 0, 1, and 2, and let's say 0, 1, and 0. Now if you don't understand what's actually happening over here, let me just quickly go ahead and print out the array B, and I'll explain you guys what actually happens over here. So if I run this code now, as you could see, we get the result as 1, 5, and 7. So let me actually explain you guys what happens when we actually pass this particular index. So what we actually did here is that instead of passing a single index value to this array, as this array is multi-dimensional, we have actually passed in two values, as this is a two-dimensional array. So what the first array actually does is that it actually goes ahead and picks up the element from this particular bigger array. So if you have a look at here, this is element number 0, this is element number 1, and this is element number 2. So this element number 0 actually signifies that we are selecting this big array right here, and then after that it's actually going to look in the second array, and it actually says you want to select the 0th element in the 0th array. So if you have a look over here, this is the 0th array, and the 0th element of the 0th array is basically this. So this is 0, 1, and 2, this is 0, 1, 2, and this is 0, 1, 2. So the 0th element in the 0th array is actually this element, and henceforth we got the result over here as 1. Now moving on to the next value, as you could see, this thing right here says 1. That means this particular array. So in this array, you actually want to select the element which is present at position 1. So this is actually the position 0, this is position 1. Hence this thing right here is the first array and the first element of that particular first array. Hence we got the result as 5 over here. And if you consider the next value, which is 2, which is obviously going to be this array. So from this array, it says we have to select the element present at the position number 0. So if you have a look over here at position number 0 in the last array, we have 7 over here, and henceforth we got the value as 7, and that's the result why we actually got this result right over here when we perform a multi-dimensional, or you could say integer indexing in this particular two-dimensional array. So that's about it about the multi-dimensional indexing or integer indexing. And now let's go ahead and take another example so as to understand, or so as to find out the corner elements of a particular array. So let's go ahead and quickly create another array. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to type in x as the name of the array, and I'm going to type in np.arrange, and in here let's create a multi-dimensional array. So that's going to be, let's say, 0, 1, 2, and let's create another one which is, let's say, 3, 4, 5, give a comma, let's say 6, 7, 8, let's say 9, 10, that should actually be in here. So 9, 10, 11. And once we have these values, let's also print out the actual array so as to have a look. So if you actually go ahead, run this code, I guess we do have some error over here. Okay, that should actually be array, not arrange. So that's actually my mistake here. So extremely sorry for that. Okay, so if you actually modify this and run this code, as you could see, now you have an array over here. And let's assume that you actually want to go ahead and select the corner elements of this particular array. So the corner elements actually are 0, 2, 9 and 11. So if you have a look at the corner elements, let's have a look at the indexes first. So the index value of this is going to be 0. So this is going to be 0th row and 0th column. This is actually going to be 0th row and 2nd column. This thing right here is going to be the 0, 1, 2, 3 3rd row and 0th column. And this thing right here is actually going to be the 3rd row and the 3rd column. So let's go ahead and try to extract these values here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a row over here. So that's going to be row equals np dot array, and this array is actually going to have values like 0, 0, as this is the corner value. Then let's say 3, 3, and after that let's create columns. So columns equals np dot array, and those values are going to be 0, 2, and make sure that you express these values in brackets as well, or else you are going to have an issue. So within brackets and within brackets 0, 2, give a comma, and that's actually going to be 0, 2. So once you have these values, let's go ahead and type in y equals x, which is the current array, and let's pass in the row values and the column values over here. So let's finally print out the values for y, and once you do that and once you hit run, as you could see, now you have the corner values over here. So if you could notice, we have 0 from the left top corner, 2 from the right top corner, 9 from the left bottom corner, and 11 from the right bottom corner. So this is how you could actually go ahead and extract values from a particular array by simply using the integer indexing. So that's about it about the integer indexing, and now let's go ahead and learn about Boolean indexing. And Boolean indexing is actually quite simpler as compared to integer indexing, and Boolean indexing is actually used when the resultant object is meant to be the result of a Boolean operation, such as a comparison operation. So if you talk about comparison operations, we always use comparison operators to basically check for a particular condition, and when that condition turns out to be true, we actually have some sort of result. So in this case, we are actually going to do the same. So what we will first do is that we will print out the elements of the array x, so as to see what kind of elements do we have. So as you could see, these are the elements which we have, and let's assume that you actually want to go ahead and check which of these following elements are greater than 5. So you could do that by using Boolean indexing. You simply have to type print, the array name is x, and instead of specifying an index here, you simply specify the condition. So we will type x greater than 5, and what that's actually going to do is that it's actually going to return only those values which are greater than 5. So if you run this code, as you could see, from this particular array, we only got those values which were greater than 5, which is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So this is how Boolean indexing works. So in Boolean indexing, you simply specify a condition over here whose result is actually going to be a Boolean value, that is, it's going to be true or false. So in this case, we have the condition like while x is greater than 5. So this is a Boolean expression, and it returned us the values which actually matches up this particular condition. So that's it for this lecture, and I hope you guys were able to understand these two complex indexing techniques. So the first one was integer indexing, and the next one was Boolean indexing. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.